Today, he seemed to indicate that he wasn't going to use force in Greenland, but he also kind of left the door open, noting that he really wants Greenland. So I think that's something to keep in mind. Also, President Trump generally likes to play to a room, and I think the room of people in Davos want stability. They want an end to this issue and this threat, not just because they care about Greenland or the international order per se, but also because of what it's done to markets. And so there could be a case that he was just playing to the room. Again, this is Donald Trump, and he consistency is not one of his strong suits. I think one of the things that Trump seems to respond to is the economy. And so all this talk about putting tariffs and taking Greenland, it played well with the base, it played well with parts of the country. Trump was rolling. And then once it started to hurt the economy, that's really when you saw Trump back down and look for an exit strategy. And that's personally what I think this whole talk of we have a future plan for Greenland is all about. It's saying like I want to calm the markets, but I also want to save face and not look like I'm capitulating, which is exactly what happened. It's really difficult to discern. Trump doesn't really have a well like articulated ideology or way he sees the world. So it's difficult to say if he's, being erratic for erratic's sake or if he just sort of reacts to things. Like Greenland has been on his mind off and on since 2019. This has been something he's talked about. So it's at least something that's in his mindset for a long period of time. Having said that, though, it's not really clear what he received from all this Greenland rhetoric. He has given this vague answer that there's some future deal he's going to get, since that's why he's taking force off the table. But what that deal is isn't really articulated, and we've seen him do this before with things like healthcare, where he's promised, he has this good deal they're putting together, and we don't see it for a decade. You could really look at this whole event and Trump's speech in particular and actions over the last year as really America kind of writing like the epilogue to the post World War II order and saying, that's done. And, Carney clearly recognizes that. And now the question is what's coming next? And it looks like these kind of spheres of influence between like Europe, the United States, Russia, China seem to be where the global community is going. So I thought it was both kind of an end and a beginning with the way folks are reacting. But in terms of the international response, I think it's been a, mixed bag. I think the United Kingdom's Keir Starmer really, the Prime Minister Keir Starmer really seemed to want to appease Trump as much as possible, hoping that through like flattery, he could get Trump to, do the right thing from the perspective of the Europeans on issues such as Greenland. I think NATO's Secretary General Mark Rutte has done the same thing, famously calling Trump daddy. Um, Macron, for example, I think was a little more, pushed back a little more in his rhetoric, talking about how it was fundamentally unacceptable to have these tariffs, and he said France was gonna stand up to bullies. I don't know how much of that rhetoric, though, Macron actually placed at Trump. It's clear that he's indicating Trump, but I don't think he was forceful as throwing Trump under the bus as, say, Prime Minister of Canada Mark Carney, and I found Mark Carney kind of to be the most interesting person of all, because Carney, admitted something that a lot of like international observers know, that international law has never really applied to the most powerful nations in general, and the United States in particular. There's always been these like double standards.
And he promised not to impose any new tariffs on Switzerland.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much.